Social Show live with Viwe Tyholwana, only on brandlive.co.za.
Welcome to the Social Show. My name is Viwe Tyholwana and I am so excited to be back on this morning. It's going to be a great one, a great day for everybody, great show lined up. We're going to be speaking a little bit about what things to expect and things that I found to be pretty amazing coming just out of South Africa in terms of collaboration, in terms of people really coming together in the spirit of high impact collaboration within CSI and within all that you need to do to get together. Remember, if you really want to get involved with the kind of initiatives that we talk about, the kind of all of the different organizations that we link up with, and all of the people in our stories, please don't be afraid to send me an email at press@social-tv, or we could also just get you to just tweet us on brandlive.co.za, or just on Facebook and all the social mediums. You are allowed to say something, to speak up, and to just get involved and get in touch. Today, I really want to speak a little bit more about collaboration, what the importance is around collaboration, why it makes so much sense for a country that's developing like South Africa, and perhaps the rest of the continent, if you think about it in a larger scale. And before I start the conversation, wow, it's a Monday, so please forgive me. Before I start the conversation, let's start off with the news. This week's news headlines. This is what's on the agenda for Sustainability Week 2018. We also look at the SACP as they announced that the 7th Annual Festival of Learning. And lastly, Cindy Nell Roberts launches a foundation focusing on female empowerment. Okay, this year's Sustainability Week is set for the 5th to the 7th of June at the CSIR Convention Center in Tshwane, and will cover sustainability development in Africa at various scales, from Africa's capital cities to the people whose sustainable development affects. From Cairo to Kampala, from Windhoek to the rest of Africa, the mayors of Africa's capital cities are coming to call the African Capital City Sustainability Forums to be held on the day one of Sustainability Week, and they will see a growing network of mayors gathered to share how they are responding to numerous challenges that are threatening the growth and the development within their African cities. These threats include rapid urbanization, energy and water, access and stresses, sanitation, and global economic slowdown, as well as rising unemployment, which is a big issue, as well as social inequities, trade facilitation, connectivity, land, and biodiversity degradation, amongst others, not to mention the significant ongoing impacts of climate change. In other news, the SACAP, which is the South African College of Applied Psychology, has announced that the 7th Annual Festival of Learning will be held in Johannesburg on the 17th and the 18th of May, and in Cape Town on the 24th and the 25th of May 2018. With this year's political transformation raising the hopes and expectations of the nation, the festival aims to ignite valuable conversations around the theme, the power to create and change. The program of interactive talks and panel discussions is aimed at exploring how the fields of psychology, counseling, and coaching can lead to individual and group transformation for the betterment of society. The Festival of Learning breaks the tradition when it comes to presentation format by focusing on generating dialogues and conversations that directly and meaningfully connect festival goers as well as presenters. For the first time, the 2018 Festival of Learning program will also include a 2-panel driven discussion. The Johannesburg panel discussion will focus on the relevance of psychology in South Africa, and in Cape Town, the theme will be feminism, sexuality, as well as mental health. And lastly, in our news, female empowerment and community development NGO Women for Women is the latest brainchild of former Miss South Africa and local businesswoman Cindy Nell Roberts. The foundation has launched several initiatives that aim to mobilize economic growth through a strategy that places the interests of women at the center. It's the realization of a long-term dream for Nell Roberts, who believes that the active participation in social upliftment is a moral obligation that many South Africans are loath to admit. She also says that it is her intention to do everything she can to give back and create more advantages in the future for those who have not been able to have. Although operating as an independent organization, Women for Women has chosen to strategically align and form partnerships with projects that are geared towards empowering women on a national level. Upcoming collaborations for 2018 include campaigns such as End Girl Hate, and one that is channeled within the Miss South Africa pageant, where they are going to be raising $1 million for communities that are disadvantaged through projects chosen by the Miss SA finalists. And the last one will be Look Good and Feel Better Foundation, which is intent on not letting cancer rob women of their self-confidence while undergoing treatment. And that concludes our news for the day.
The world is becoming increasingly urban. We'll need to build a new city for 1 million people every week to keep up, or manage the growth of the cities we already have. The battle for sustainable development will be won or lost in our cities, working with the rural areas on which they depend for food and natural resources. Mayors and local governments are already taking action to win this battle. We provide basic services and work with slum dwellers and neighbourhoods to upgrade their living conditions. We improve air quality by investing in public transport and green mobility. We protect the environment through sustainable waste management. We tackle urban segregation by ensuring quality green and public spaces for all. We protect urban cultural heritage for future generations. We monitor and regulate land use to make cities more resilient to climate change and disasters. We involve our communities in planning for inclusive and sustainable urbanisation. Local and regional governments seek strong partnerships with national governments to ensure enabling legal frameworks and adequate resources, and play our full role in achieving Sustainable Development Goal 11, which is Sustainable Cities and Communities. The Sustainable Development Agenda depends on local governments.
My name is Andrew Lowndes. I'm the UK and Ireland Sales Manager for Presslit Care. At Presslit Care, we're very passionate about providing access for people with physical disabilities. We're very passionate about the Changing Places campaign that provide larger accessible toilet and changing facilities. It's fantastic when we can see the smile on the faces of users. That's our reward, is to see the satisfaction and the enjoyment that people have.
The jobs and economy of the future will be urban. By 2030, 60% of the global population will live in cities. To ensure decent work and economic growth, local leaders face many challenges. 40 million jobs need to be created every year for young people entering the labour market. Depending on the developing region, between 45 and 90% of workers are in the informal economy. There are 168 million children in child labour worldwide. Women's average wages are between 4 to 36% less than men's. Many local governments are already taking action, fostering community participation and social dialogue between employers and workers, including in the informal economy, adapting and responding to economic trends and challenges, promoting entrepreneurship, job-oriented policies, innovation and labour protection, and learning from one another through city-to-city cooperation. Local and regional governments do all this to ensure inclusive and sustainable economic growth, employment, and decent work for all, which is Goal 8 of the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. Achieving SDG 8 depends on local governments.
Well, you're back on the social show, and I hope you learned something on the news, and you also learned something just as we took our short break and coming back. And today, I really wanted to speak a little bit about something that I heard over the radio a couple of weeks ago, a week ago maybe. And it was how the 94-7 breakfast team, including Annele Mdoda and a few of the other presenters, I'm not really sure about who they all are. I just am a big fan of Annele. But anyway, what they did is they managed to raise a total of about over a million to take over 8,000 young South Africans from underprivileged backgrounds to watch the first black superhero film, Black Panther. And the fundraiser followed a conversation that they had with South African cast of the film, as John Kani and Connie Chiume, who indicated that they would love to see it if every South African child could be afforded an opportunity to watch the movie. Now, as you know, if you haven't watched Black Panther, you must know that it has quite one of the largest South African casts for an international film. That's the first thing. But second of all, it is really about the African experience, African American experience, as well as African experience. It's a really great collaboration, and it also was just very exciting because it had a lot of music from South Africa. If you've watched the movie, you will know what I'm talking about. A lot of the songs, a lot of the even just in terms of the scoring, and even I think the soundtrack of the album of the movie had a lot of South African artists, and it's really a great way to empower South African artists. As you know, I always say that CSI space often neglects those who are creative and those who are artists, because it's very difficult to weigh in a developing country what's more important. Well, it's not difficult. I just think people aren't necessarily thinking about art when they're thinking about giving back. They don't think about music when they think about giving back. They don't think about actors, and really they are suffering. So I really, really loved this, and it just showed a lot of a lot of collaboration. I remember a lot of different people. Wimpy called in and pledged about 15,000. Different companies from all over South Africa came in and pledged. I mean, it literally went from about 20,000 to 1 million in minutes. In literal minutes. And it kind of shows also the influence of celebrity culture that we always speak about. I always have to argue whether there is a necessity to have celebrities within your organization, or people who have influence, who have the numbers. How important is it, and what kind of impact do they have? What kind of influence do they have? And they raised about 1 million rand in just, I think, 30 minutes. And I think it's so amazing that they could. And I wonder what kind of thoughts you had around that. Do you think do you think we need to have more of a public awareness around fundraising? You think public awareness in terms of radio and in terms of TV, do you think they need to play their role when it comes to fundraising? Because I mean, if we can raise $1 million rand in 30 minutes for someone to watch, for children to watch a movie that celebrates who they are and just sort of solidifies how creative South Africans can be, could we not do the same for kids who really don't even have a meal every single day, kids who can't go to school, kids who don't have shoes, kids who don't know how to get to school, kids who are being killed in toilets? What is that relationship like? What is that conversation like? Could we do more on our public platforms? Could this be an ongoing thing that 94/7 does? I mean, I don't think it's as easy as always every single month raising funds, but I think if they do focus their energies in the way that they did now, it would be really amazing. So I just wanted to highlight that. But in highlighting that, my point for today is going to be around collaborative social responsibility, the real difference, the real CSR. Now, consumers are increasingly want to give back. That's something that I've seen in my experience as the only CSI reporter in a room. Usually, I'm always so intrigued and so enamored and so happy when I hear about people really trying to find solutions and people really trying to support people who are trying to find solutions. I don't know how many times I've seen people, support or want to be part of new startups, social in entrepreneurship, looking at how they can help young entrepreneurs get into spaces, looking at new developments around projects, around collaborations, around, foundations, around NGOs. There's been a lot of that. And it's actually quite evident that a lot of consumers really want to donate to their favorite nonprofit by buying a product from a responsibly deemed company that partners with an NGO for a good cause. Now, partnerships are just not you and an NGO as a CSI. A lot of people think it's quite linear or rather vertical, where it's the NGO being empowered by the corporate or the NGO being empowered by the government. But I actually think it's quite horizontal in the sense that I do think more and more we're seeing CSI, corporates collaborating with other corporates. They're not afraid to put both of their stamps, both of their marks on one project. And I think that's something that's really amazing. Companies have begun to translate employees' philanthropic fervor into the workplace culture or successful giving campaigns. And some big players like Cisco, Microsoft, and Accenture, and I did speak to Microsoft and had an interview with Microsoft SA a while ago. And they're really doing an amazing thing to dedicate their departments to help foundations reach the company's social goals, as well as build relationships with humanitarian partners. I actually wonder now, in terms of what happened with the Kaizer Chiefs, I'm sure everybody's in their heads and doesn't even know how to explain that. But that's really a disaster. It's a big disaster. I'm pretty sure that a lot of the people on the ground were hurt. But more than that, not even more than that, but I'm just saying in terms of the infrastructure of the space, it's no longer as safe. It's no longer a space where people can watch a game again. Who's going to be paying for that? Can it be a social responsibility or tactic? Can it be a social innovation tactic where a company comes in and fixes it for the love of the sport? Is that something that we can think about? Is that something that we can see a little bit of a collaboration with? Can the sponsors come together within that space and understand that it is just to fix, it is just to repair, and it is just to rebuild, which is honestly the real mantra of corporate social investment in essence, right? So I think it's very important that we start looking at collaborations as a horizontal effect, as a corporate to corporate, as a business to business venture. I think foundations also need to adopt a more strategic mindset, one that understands that there is much more to invest in a nonprofit than just a cash donation. That's something that I also believe in quite vehemently, that, in the same way in which the 94.7 crew opened up, cash donations, they also just got some collaborators that were willing to give the kids a meal, were willing to give them glasses, 3D glasses, were willing to collaborate in terms of the kind of toys and whatever else they could get back afterwards, t-shirts, anything else that would help make the experience a little bit better, transport. So we don't always have to think about it as cash donations. We also need to think about how else your needs can be solidified. In fact, this past week I was at a really amazing creative space where this lady by the name of Tendai was raising money for a series that she wants to launch in Zimbabwe. And she had a room full of people from Zimbabwe and outside of Zimbabwe, myself included. And she was just saying to them, I don't really need your money. I don't need you to give me cash. I just need you to give me resources that will help make sure that this series comes to life and comes to fruition. My dream comes into fruition. And then we collaborate and we grow this sort of new space in Zimbabwe, which is opening up for creatives. And I was very, very excited about that, because all she wanted was fuel money, or somebody to borrow them the car once in a while to fetch the actors, somebody to help them with donate, makeup. It was all about collaboration. And I think that's the kind of space where we're finding ourselves, where we are no longer just looking at these once-off transactions. Going forward, partnerships across the philanthropic sector and other sectors will be at the core of the actual running of the foundation, the actual running of the cause. And I think that's how we can actually go around and get away with it. And I always say, whenever people are listening, if you are an avid listener of the CSI, of the social show, CSI show, the social show, you will know that I always believe that you should stick quite close to your brand, stick to quite close to what your strengths are, and look at where you can help in that space. I don't think all companies should just give outside of what they have. And sometimes that's their biggest issues, that whatever it is that they're doing in the communities doesn't align or doesn't work well with the kind of services that they want, which then I think then makes us think about a little bit differently about the conversation between what your purpose is as an organization, what it is that you hope to instill, your legacy, versus what your CSI space or what it is that you are, connecting and putting together to make sure that you have a sustainable CSI in department or CSR department or shared value department. Is there a difference between purpose and CSI, and should there be a little bit more clarification, or should it just sort of come together in a uniquely natural way? So I'm going to leave you with that for a bit. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll end off the show with things to remember.
My name is Senne. I'm a chemical engineer and I work as a process specialist at Presolid. As a manufacturing company, we are very concerned with ensuring responsible consumption and production. Therefore,
My name is Andrew Lowndes. I'm the UK and Ireland Sales Manager for Presolid Care. At Presolid Care, we're very passionate about providing access for people with physical disabilities. And we're very passionate about the Changing Places campaign that provide larger accessible toilet and changing facilities. It's fantastic when we can see the smile on the faces of users. That's our reward, is to see the satisfaction and the enjoyment that people have.
There is no doubt that quality education can help reduce poverty, foster economic prosperity, improve health and well-being. It can help a person to understand this world better or build a base for the future. It's clear, it's simple, education is important. However, today there are places around the world where 14 students share just one book. Girls simply drop out because there are no toilets in schools. Today, 58 million children are denied the basic right to education. Those children did not even have a choice, but you do.
What is individual social responsibility? Social responsibility is about me, you, and us. It is about our action, how we affect people, the community, and the environment around us. What if we all accepted responsibility for the challenges that our communities face? What if we challenged ourselves to create positive impact with every action we take? Just like businesses focus on corporate social responsibility, JCI members are challenged to focus on individual social responsibility. We all have rights as citizens, but we also have responsibilities. The JCI Active Citizen Framework is a social plan that serves as a roadmap to sustainable development. That is what social responsibility is about. It is about me, you, and all of us taking responsibility for the future of our world, starting from our local community.
You're back on the social show with myself, Viwe Tyholwana, and we're about to wrap up what looks like the end of the show. It's been really amazing, but before we do, I always want to leave you guys with something to remember, something to make you think, something just to make you speak a little bit passionately about your CSI and just think about it a little bit differently. And I think it goes back to the conversation I was having just before the ad break, where I spoke about purpose versus CSI, and that's exactly the conversation you're about to listen to. Things to remember, and then after that we'll just wrap up the show.
And this is getting back to an earlier discussion we had. Indra Nooyi said something that I agreed with so much, is that often people confuse purpose and corporate social responsibility. And I think it's really important when defining purpose for your organization, you know, the role of the customer, the employee, the investor, and then you decide how far you're going to go on broader societal missions. And some organizations are set up explicitly around providing employment for coffee workers in the Amazon, right? Yeah. And they can have that purpose, but then they also have to figure out what the metrics are that they'll hold themselves accountable to. And so the piece that it makes me start thinking about is once you pick it, then you got to pick your metrics. right? So I think you can have as broad a purpose as you choose as an organization, but then you have to also hold yourself accountable. Is that attainable? Is that something I can move the needle on? And how am I going to hold myself accountable for doing that?
Yeah. Dave, how do you think
If you broaden this to look at social responsibility,
Yeah.
It becomes a little different animal, because in a company like ours, last year we spent $250 million in charitable gifts and contributions, donations, and different things like that. And that's consistent with the last several years. And Forbes called us the most charitable company in America, which we appreciated that recognition. But frankly, the contributions we make are directly related to our purpose as an organization, to what we're trying to achieve, and they are targeted at our customers, the communities we serve, and our associates. In fact, we went out and researched with our customers, what things do you think it's important for a grocery company like ours to participate in? And they told us things related to their community, their schools, because many of the people who shop in our stores have kids and they want us to relate to the schools. They think hunger problems and issues, so we support food banks all over the U.S. We make sure that what was otherwise wasted food, perishable food, now gets donated through those services. We look at sustainability as important to our associates, so we really go after that in a big way. We've reduced our energy usage by 30% in the last 10 years on a square foot basis across our footprint. And I used to think of that as a fixed cost. For heaven's sakes, I was so wrong. But our associates said we can make a dent on this, and they wanted to go after it. So I think most of the goals that you think of as social and affecting the community as a whole need to relate back to what are you trying to do in your business, and does it make some sense? Now, if you're the sole owner of the business and you want to support something, fine, but your shareholders should insist that you spend the money in a way that furthers the business in a positive way. Now, it can help the community, certainly, and the $250 million does help the communities, but it helps Kroger at the same time.
All right, and that was a great conversation that was happening around whether or not, there's adequate ways of measuring a company's footprint within the CSI space, and also not confusing it with purpose. Because at the end of the day, can a company really measure their impact if they're not necessarily within that space? Do they have the capacity to measure their impact if they do not work within a space? So for instance, if you are Total, for instance, like a company like Shell or Total, would your focus then be being responsible in the communities at which you operate, which would talk to gas emissions, making sure that people are healthy, the environment, climate change, that kind of thing, because that's the kind of space you're working in? Or would you look at your communities in a way of saying, there's people who work for us and they walk long distances. How can we make sure that they have transport? How can we make sure that they are serviced? Or there's a school program. I mean, Anglo American just came up with the school program just the other day. And again, how do we then find the balance between what is your purpose and how can you measure that impact of that purpose versus your just innate responsibility as a company and what it is that the law requires from you? Something to think about, something to remember, something to hold on to whenever you're about to pitch or think about what kind of program you'd like your company to have regarding social responsibility initiatives. And that concludes our show for the day. It's been lovely. It's a beautiful Monday. Let's have a beautiful week. I'll be back again, same time, same place tomorrow, only on The Social Show.